Chilton, Corey Stockton, and Greg Street.
Settled in here. Let's get this thing started. So, as you guys know at this point, this is the World of Warcraft Mists of Pandaria preview panel. And, yeah. So, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be speaking to you for quite some time to try to give you a lot more detail about what we're doing here with our upcoming expansion. We're going to give you some philosophy behind, you know, the things we're trying to accomplish with the expansion. And then also we're going to talk in great detail about the features themselves because, you know, as you might have seen, those names of features going by in that trailer might leave you wondering, well, what are they talking about? What are they? So without further ado, what is World of Warcraft Mists of Pandaria? And our prime objective here is we want to be combining new gameplay with the most fun parts of the past. I think it's a fair criticism that some people have leveled against Cataclysm, saying that, you know what, there weren't a whole lot of new things to do at the end game, right? So you level up through the new stuff, or you re-roll and you go through the very much changed world. But at the end game, it's, you know, the same kind of stuff that you've been doing for years and years, hopefully at least. So we want to make sure that we introduce some really fun new things for you guys to do to kind of keep things exciting at the end game. So there we are, new things to do. That's a core part of blending exciting things of the past with new things of the future. This is just a quick, like the image there is just a snapshot of an idea that we have that we're working on called the challenge modes. Another core philosophy that we have is getting people back into the world. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a little bit tired of seeing the inside of Stormwind and Orgrimmar all the time. Great cities and all, very lovely places, but standing in the city queuing for stuff, you know, all the time can get a little bit old. So, you know, just like a lot of you guys, it sounds like, we want to get people back out into the world at max level and experiencing the world, and you know, that means a lot of different things. It means getting out there and having a fun questing experience. It means getting out there and doing stuff like pictured here. We've got an old school shot of Azure Ghost. So one of the things that we're planning to do is to kind of reintroduce the concept of these outdoor world raid mobs for players to fight. And of course, where there are outdoor world raid mobs that people are fighting on PvP servers, that means that there will be people there trying to grief the people doing the outdoor world raid fighting. So yeah, it's a little bit of that Horde Alliance conflict Chris was referring to. So another core philosophy that we have is that we want you to be able to do what you want to do to progress your character. Over time, World of Warcraft has kind of blossomed with all these different things to do, and we're going to be adding more different things to do. And we really want the game to feel like there's a menu of content, and that you can pick and choose what kind of content you want to do, and you're not necessarily pigeonholed into the content that you feel like you have to do in order to be able to progress your character. So what we're trying to say here is that we want you to be able to progress your character whether or not you're raiding, doing dungeons, or even doing daily quests, for example. And so that's what that little image is there. You know, you got a little quest turn in there. Imagine that's a daily quest that you're turning in. You're getting Valor points out of it. So that way you can actually get Valor points and progress your character, even if you're just the guy that wants to go out there and quest. Granted, it'll be faster if you're doing raids, or if you're doing, you know, hard mode raids, all that kind of stuff, heroic raids, but you'll still be able to make progress all the time. Next, we really want you to be able to geek out with more interesting character builds than ever before. I was there back in 2004 when we created the talent system. In fact, that was kind of my job, was to create the talent system that you guys have experienced over the last many, many years. We had this vision, right? Back then, it was in the Friends and Family Alpha that we were getting constant feedback. You know, this was before we had a talent system, or at least one that you know of today. And we would get constant feedback about players wanting to be able to customize their character more. You know, they wanted to be able to stand next to another character of the same class and feel like they were a little bit different, that they made some choices and that those choices were meaningful, and that led to their gameplay experience feeling a little bit different and that their character was special. So with that in mind, we went out and we created the original talent system. I would say that it was, you know, the talent system was pretty cool. You know, we drew a lot from stuff like the Diablo 2 skills system, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, I don't actually feel like it's aged as well as I wish it had. I feel like, you know, we've been plagued over the years with cookie cutter builds, right? And how much choice do you really have when you step into your raid or whatever, and your raid leader's telling you, well, you know, those 4 points that you spent right there are going to cost you, you know, 4% DPS, and we really can't have that, so you're going to have to take a hike, that sort of thing. So we want to try to make sure that we refine what we call the talent system to get to the point where we don't have the cookie cutter builds that we have today, and that the choices that you're making are significant choices for your character, but that you actually have a lot of flexibility about how to set up your character and how to play it. So we'll be going into a lot more detail in this talk and also in the talent panel with exactly what that is. So with that, we have the introduction, of course, to the continent of Pandaria. So Corey's going to step up and tell you guys all about the continent itself.
Hey, guys. So everyone knows where you're going to be playing. You know what, you've heard what Pandaria is, but now we want to show you and tell you about what you're actually going to be playing in. What is this place? So it's going to be 5 new zones of level-up zones is what we're looking at for the continent itself. Another thing that we're changing here is the fact that we're going to go back to a single unified continent. So if you remember back to Burning Crusade or you think about Northrend, we had one single continent with all the zones together. With Cataclysm, we changed that up a little bit, and our zones were separated in different places. We kind of felt like that didn't make it feel like one unified place. Instead, it felt a little separated and just didn't have that same vibe. So with Pandaria, we're going to be going back to that same kind of hit where we've got all the zones and they're going to make one unified place. As you've probably seen from the cinematic, we've clearly got an Asian influence on the landscapes and the environments and everything you're seeing here. It's been super cool just to see the artists at Blizzard take that and turn it really into a unique World of Warcraft style. Because you could take that and just, you know, kind of make it look specifically Chinese or Asian or one specific look, but we've really put that World of Warcraft look at it, so when people see it, they instantly think, wow. Another thing that's going to be a little different that we haven't done actually really since Burning Crusade is we're going to have an auction house in the new continent. So actually on Pandaria, you'll have an auction house that you'll have access to. Now granted, you know, you're still going to need to go to Stormwind or Orgrimmar for certain things that you're going to need to do, but we want people to have that convenience that if you're at the new continent and you like playing there, you should be able to stay there in Pandaria. You shouldn't necessarily have to always be going back all the time. And another thing we're going to be changing is we're not going to have flying until max level. And it's great to see that response because that's really how we feel about it. I don't know about you, but for us, you know, it's just questing. Every time you kill a mob, you've got to get on your mount, fly up in the air, fly over something, land back down again, dismount, fly, then mount up again. You know, even though it feels convenient and fast, in the long run, we just don't really feel like it gives the best questing experience that you could have. So by going back to this, we really feel like we're going to get a better core quest experience. So here's a look at the continent as a whole. This is you guys have, anyone that's been to Blizzcon before has probably seen this. This is how we start out our design process. We lay out everything in 2D and get a feel for how it's going to play out. So you can see the 5 zones here. We've kind of got a central valley, the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. We've got dungeons across all the different zones. I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 of these zones. The Jade Forest, which is our intro, our start zone, and then the Valley of the Four Winds there on the south side. One thing that's cool is we've really been working on this for a while, so we've got a lot of stuff to show you guys. I think this is probably the first BlizzCon we're going to be able to actually show video fly-throughs of these zones with their, you know, art complete and ready to see. Here's a little look at the scale. So there's Twilight Highlands from Cataclysm, so you can just get a vibe for how big these zones are. Yes, we're delivering 5 zones, but they're really large zones. And when you add that to the fact that you're not going to have access to a flying mount till max level, you can really see there's going to be a ton of content in these zones. So a little bit about Pandaria. Pandaria's been around for a long time. The thing is, it's been shrouded by mist since the Sundering, so no one's really had access to it. The Pandaren have been alone there for all this time. They've been undiscovered. As Chris was kind of mentioning in the opening, the Alliance and Horde are locked in an intense battle. That's something that's always been the core of World of Warcraft, right? And we want to follow that up here. So they're in a naval battle somewhere close, near to the continent, and that's how they end up discovering it. They end up having a naval battle offshore, ships end up getting blown up, and Alliance and Horde end up washing up on the shores of Pandaria. And it's been revealed, thanks to the events of the Cataclysm, has finally unshrouded the mist, and you're able to find the continent. The Alliance versus Horde aspect of this, though, is that once they land here and they find it, they realize that it's a lush land, it's full of resources and all kinds of things that Garrosh could use and things that Varian can use in their war. And so they're basically going to just destroy this land, trying to get what they can out of it. And that's where we come in. Now, we've got a whole panel on story and lore. It's tomorrow at 4:15. So if you guys want some more info on that, be sure to hit up that panel. Now, besides the continent itself of Pandaria, we've also got a new start zone. So anyone that rolls a new Pandaren is going to have a new start zone to play in. What's really crazy about this start zone is that it's a turtle. You guys are going to see it here in a little bit. We've got some shots of it in a video. But essentially, you're playing on the back of a giant turtle. This turtle left Pandaria 10,000 years ago and started growing. And the Pandaren have always been happy with Pandaria. They haven't wanted to leave, but a few of them have gotten what we call the wanderlust. They kind of want to get out and see the rest of the world. And those Pandaren that want to do that have left on the turtle. And that's essentially where any player Pandaren will start playing from. Now, it's going to be similar to our past start experiences. It's going to be story-focused, simple mechanics, but it's going to really, really draw you into the Pandaren lore, their culture, their history, and find out really what's going on with them as a whole. Super unique. Greg's going to talk about this more in a little bit, but the Pandaren are our first neutral race. So it's a race that you're going to start out as neutral and play from level 1 to 10, and then when you get to level 10, you're going to pick your faction. You'll pick Alliance or Horde at that point, and it's a one-way choice. So you'll make that choice, and then you'll decide and go forward from there. Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. It's the first time we've had a chance to do it, so it should play out really cool. So here's a look at some concept art of the turtle. Like I said, it's a turtle. So you can see there's a valley you start in and you kind of work your way around. We've got a really cool storyline here where you're trying to restore some spirits to that central temple. This is the map. So this entire play space, the entire starting zone is playable here at the show, on the show floor. So you'll be able to go over, get a Pandaren, and play all the way through. That's why we have a final map here, because this whole thing's playable now at the show. Here's some screenshots of a look. This is that central temple you saw. This is a look at the edge of the turtle, so you can kind of see where the turtle hits the ocean there. Obviously, Pandaren love beer, so they need lots of breweries. You'll find these all over the place. And then this is a great shot showing the actual, the island itself that you're playing on. You're on the back of a turtle. So when we say you're on the back of a turtle, we're not trying to fake it and kind of just look like a turtle. This actually is a turtle that you're playing on. When you run up to the edge, you'll be able to see water on the edge. You'll be able to see the head. Everything will be animated. So it's going to feel really cool and unique. And here's a video of some of what it looks like. There you go. Isn't that awesome? I mean, we've been seeing this stuff for a while, and I still think when we log into the game to play it, we're just always blown away by just what they were able to do with this art style specifically for WoW. So next up, let's talk a little bit about what are you going to be killing here, right? You can't just all be Happy Land running around. You got to have stuff to kill. So let's talk about some of the races you're going to run into on Pandaria. First off, we have the Jinyu. The Jinyu is a race of fish-like creatures. They kind of looked at as the wise men on Pandaria. They've been known to take their staff, stick it in the river, and they can hear what the land is saying. It's literally talking to them. You're going to see them across a wide number of zones. They're definitely something that's going to play into your story the whole way through. Here's a concept piece of what they look like. Next up, we've got the Hozu. The Hozu are a monkey-like race. They stand up on their hind legs. They can walk around. They've been known to be really mischievous. They play tons of pranks on the local Pandaren. It's something that's been indigenous to the continent for a long time. And just like the Hozu, they play through in a lot of zones throughout the whole place. You're going to see them in dungeons as well as the zones outside. Here's a look at what they look like. Concept piece. Next up, we've got the Vermin. The Vermin are our take on, we really wanted to do a new kobold. When you look at the kobold, it's the classic creature. Whenever you see them, you always want to take them out. You can fight them in droves. They're not too strong, so you can fight a bunch of them at one time, like a little bit of a nuisance. Here's a look at these guys. We saw this concept art, and we were like, we need to build that right now. And he needs whatever this crazy knife, fork, weapon thing going on. But the Pandaren have lots of farmland, and these are the kind of guys that they've dug tunnels under the farmland, and they're sucking the vegetables down underneath into their tunnels from below. So that's part of the storyline and the stuff you're going to get with these guys. Now, next up, we have the Mantid. This is one of our pillar enemy races. We're going to have whole raids based around the Mantid, dungeons. They really play a big role in the kind of the overarching story. They're an insect race that's been on the island for millennia. They've lived next to the Pandaren this whole time, but they've kind of been separated from the rest of the continent by a giant wall. And as you're going to find out over the story of the expansion, they're starting to go a little crazy, and they're coming through the wall in places, and you're going to have to end up dealing with that. So here's a look at them. Now, different than our other insect races that we've had before, like Silithid, these are sentient creatures. Like, they're going to be able to dress themselves. They have their own houses. They have looks. They're not a hive mind like you would get with the Silithid. They're more of a creature that you can expect to be intelligent and use weapons. So we really wanted to play up a different aspect on them.
What language do they speak?
Next up, we've got the Mogu. The Mogu are another ancient race. The Mogu were actually the original race on the island of Pandaria. They were the first race before the Pandaren overthrew them over 12,000 years ago and took the island for themselves. And what's happening now is the Mogu want it back. And so that's going to play another big part of this storyline, is you're going to see them in raids, you're going to see them in dungeons. We really wanted to have a lot of villains for players to fight. Like Chris mentioned, we don't necessarily always have to have one big bad guy that's causing all the badness in the expansion. We kind of want to spread it out and have a number of things that players are dealing with. Here's a look at these guys. So you can see they're kind of big and hulking ogre-like race. And finally, we've got the Shah. The Shah is really unique. What it is, it's the manifestation of negative energy on Pandaria. So if you imagine whenever anything bad, someone gets killed, a fight happens, something like that on the island, any sort of battle, essentially what's happening with the Alliance and Horde once they get here releases Shah energy into the land. It's kind of a shadow form creature. You're going to see it all over the place. Here's a look at what we're thinking, how these guys can feel. Super aggressive, something you definitely want to take out. You could fight this guy as a raid boss for sure. So that's just a quick look at some of the stuff you can expect from the creatures. Next up, we're going to hit the first zone, the Jade Forest. This is where Alliance and Horde are going to be landing. So this naval battle we've talked about that happened off the coast, the Horde end up washing up on the north side. The Alliance ends up washing up on the south side of the zone. So historically, over the past couple expansions, we've had separate start zones where you've been able to come in and choose, like, I want to go to Kashir, do I want to go to Hyjal, do I want to go to Howling Fjord, or do I want to go to Borean Tundra? So here we're going to do one unified start zone, and Alliance and Horde are going to kind of meet up in the middle. So definitely a little bit of a different vibe. The look is very, very unique. It's these tall stone spires and filled with rainforests in the valleys. But on the top of these stone spires, you've got Pandaren buildings, so they create these awesome vistas and really cool landscapes. It's a different look from any WoW zone we've done before. It's definitely going to be your first look at the Hozu and the Jinyu. So you're going to meet these races and actually try to befriend them. The Alliance tries to take the Hozu, while the Horde will try to become friendly with the Jinyu and end up turning them against each other. And this is what ends up causing so much negative energy to be released in the zone, and that's part of the storyline that you're going to play through. This, of course, releases more Sha, and this is super bad. This is why when you get there originally, Pandaren aren't necessarily big fans of you, because what are you doing? You've come into this pristine land, and you just started to tear it apart. We also have a dungeon in this zone, the Temple of the Jade Serpent. We'll be talking about this dungeon in detail at the Dungeon and Raid panel. But it's definitely going to be, it's going to be your 85 to 86 dungeon when you first get there. This dungeon has been kind of taken over by Sha. It's been caused by you. So the whole goal there is for you to go in and cleanse it, essentially, of what you've done. So you've got to look at the map of the zone here. So you can see all those kind of brown dots are the spires throughout the zone. So it's filled with valleys all across. Here's a look at some concept art. Just looks so great. It's got that super unique vibe. Another look at some of the valleys with those spires. And then we've got a video. I'll show you guys. That's the Jade Forest. Now, once you finish the Jade Forest, you'll be heading on to the Valley of the Four Winds. That's our second zone. This zone is huge. It's kind of broken up in two sections. It's got a north side and a south side. The whole northern side of the zone is Pandaren farmlands, while the whole south side of the zone is essentially a coastal jungle. And going along with our theme of kind of having less linear quest content, when you come in here, you're going to be able to choose to go south right at the beginning or go to the north side. Now, obviously, you can come back and do either side later. We want to make sure people feel like they have a choice and they're not being... It's one thing we wanted to kind of hit on a little bit, is not having our quest flow feel so linear. So every time you do a zone, you do it in the exact same way. As we said, another thing that goes along here is that we've got a dungeon. So it's one thing we're trying to do a little different, is make sure that the dungeons feel like they fit in each zone. So when I say that, I mean that not just that it fits the story like it should be there, but more that it actually exists in the world. So when you go to Valley of the Four Winds and the Storm Stout Brewery is there, you're actually going to see this giant Storm Stout Brewery building. It's something we haven't been able to do a lot of. Sometimes we end up with just a portal, and the portal takes you into the dungeon, but you never see where that dungeon is in the world. So that's a big thing we've tried to do with these zones, is make sure that our dungeons really have a presence, like they're definitely there. Your first interaction with the Mantid is going to be here in the Valley of the Four Winds. This is one of the zones that borders the wall I was talking about a little earlier, and one of the first breaches in the wall by the Mantid have happened here. And they're attacking a Pandaren village, and you're going to come in and have to figure this out and deal with that through the quest lines. So here's a look at the map. So you can kind of see that top part of the zone on the north side of the river is all the farmland, and then the southern side is all the coastal jungle. Here's a look at some concepts. So this is so when we were trying to think about what Pandaren farmland would be, we didn't want it to feel anything like the farmland you've seen in WoW, like you see in Westfall or you've seen in other zones where we do human farmlands. We wanted to feel different and have that vibe. So here we've got those tiered rice paddies. This is a side cutaway view of the zone, so you can kind of see how it starts and then teeters all the way down to the coastal jungle down on the edge. And here's a video. See what it looks like. That's Valley of the Four Winds. So next up, Greg's going to come up and talk to you guys a little about some of the new features you'll be seeing in the expansion.
You guys still with us? There's a lot of information we know. We keep saying it's a fire hose. We're just spraying you with new stuff you've never seen before. We usually don't have this much to talk about when we have an expansion, so here we go. Love you too, man. We have a new race, the Pandaren. One of our early concepts here. There's not a lot of the hair and facial styles in yet. If you go out and play, and I encourage you to go do that, you'll probably look like this. That's all coming. They look pretty awesome. And here's the female. And we have variation on the female ready. Now, of course, we don't have the female done, and if you go play through the starting zone, you're going to see a lot of female pandas, and they're going to say, I am a girl, or something on their name, so just use your imagination. They're coming. As you mentioned, you can be Horde or Alliance as a Pandaran. You start out neutral, and at level 10, you can make your choice, kind of depending on the philosophy you espouse, or more likely where all your other characters are. These are the Pandaren classes. Yeah, we can talk a lot about the monk, but you can see there's several other classes they have to choose from. Some of these we thought didn't make as much sense. There weren't a lot of Pandaren fighting back in the wars on Azeroth. Weren't sure what a Pandaren druid meant. A bear that turns into a bear? Or... All right, the Pandaren racials. These have been extensively vetted, I'm sure are set in stone, and will never, ever change. You get increased stat benefits from food. They like to eat. They also like to cook. And in fact, we're going to try to do some interesting things with cooking because that's such a key element of the Pandaren culture. Inner peace. It's one of those ones that sounds really, really powerful and probably isn't, which is exactly what we look for in a racial. This one, on the other hand, is crazy overpowered. I'm sure we'll never make it. And finally, they need something active to do, and this is it. A little bit of crowd control. Wanted to show out some of the awesome weapons that the artists have put together for the Pandaren start zone. You're going to see a lot of stuff like this. We really want it to feel like you're not in Azeroth. You're in, you're this new place with an entirely different culture and feel. All right. We have a monk. Again, we're going to start with some concept art. Here they are. See the guy there? Really, really excellent animations. We'll show you some more of those in a second here. So, if you ever wanted to play a drunken master, this is your chance. They have 3 specs. Yeah. What we want to do with the the monk healer is to try to experiment a little bit more with a healer that can stand up in melee. If you've ever played, say, Atonement Discipline Priest, you can do a little bit of damage that drives your healing. We don't expect monk healers are going to be doing tons and tons of damage, but we want to kind of experiment with a different type of healing style. Maybe get players who are a little burned out on healing to try something different here. And then finally, you can probably guess what the last one is. Punch someone in the face. We do have this epic start zone for them, so we want players to experience it. With the Death Knight, we thought the story kind of made sense that you're being brought back by the Lich King. Here, it's more that you're starting out on the turtle and eventually will make it to Pandaria, so you start at first level. Very martial arts based, it probably goes without saying, but really trying to embrace this. Even like I said, the healer and the tank are going to do a lot of very kung fu things. And our animation team really delivered on this to a crazy level. There are a lot of new animations for the monk. The tank healer and DPS guy all have different stances they stand in, so even their base kind of idle animations look different. You'll see them all throwing a lot of punches, all of their weapon animations are unique, and this goes for the non-Pandaran too. Oh, you thought that monks were Pandaran only. So our fiction here is now that Pandaria has been rediscovered, while most of the Pandaren are kind of the stay-at-home type, there are the adventurous ones, and they're spreading out a little bit into the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and starting to train some of these other races in the secret arts of monkery, or whatever we call it. I think Tom said, if we don't do no monks, monks aren't worth doing, so. I also can't wait to see a Taran monk do the role. But. All right, what do they use? They hit a lot with their hands and feet. We really want to deliver on that fantasy that you're sitting there punching and kicking the crap out of those little bunny guys. But we still want them to have weapons. We want you to see your weapons as you're using them. So you can imagine a typical fight might be you build up with your hands and feet, and then you pull out your staff or your other weapon for some kind of killer finisher. We do want to use a lot of stabs and fist weapons. These aren't the only weapons they're going to use, but we thought they're very signature for the monk. We think this will allow us to put a lot more fist weapons in the game. They're really cool. They don't quite have enough users yet, so expect to see a lot more. They can also use one-handed axes, maces, and swords. We're trying to figure out exactly the difference between the dual wielding and the two-handed. We might let anyone do anything. Dual wield might be DPS. That's the kind of thing we're going to iterate on. I'm sure you guys will let us know the right way to do it. And healers can use offhands. We don't want the monks using shields. They're leather armor class, so they'll share a lot of the same gear as druids. Agility for the tank or DPS, and intellect for the healer. Okay, one of the fun things about doing a new class is coming up with a new resource system. We want it to feel a little different, kind of capitalize on what we already know works, but just try to mix it up a little bit. So they have it's an energy-like resource in that it slowly regenerates, and you use this primarily only for two attacks. Your jab, which is your primarily builder, and then the roll attack, which you saw in the opening trailer where the monk is running along that goes into a roll. It's a lot of fun if you go check it out. All our computers over around the corner there. Jab generates light and dark force, which you then use for everything else. So you have some finishing moves that take the light force and some finishing moves that take the dark force. Yeah. We talked about this a lot, and it's pretty controversial, but it's also kind of fun. We really wanted to deliver on this kind of Street Fighter feel that you're punching a lot. And we thought the auto attack was just going to get in the way of that. We wanted to feel very visceral. You push a button, you see an animation. So I actually think it feels pretty good, but try it out and let us know. This is the current monk resource bar. Again, if you were with us for the Death Knight, this is the kind of thing we iterated on a lot. But you can see we have 4 light force balls and 4 dark force balls on the other side. You would fill those up and then consume them to do finishers. At the moment, in the playtest area around there, this bar is down in the middle of your screen. That's something we've never done before. It's something players have asked us about a lot, so we're going to try it. Again, let us know how it works. Now I'm going to show you a video we put together. We did some fun camera work here, but all of these animations are real. This is what a monk should look like when you're actually in combat. lot of new animations. Really fun. Okay. That's right there. This is a big one. This isn't something we've made a big secret of. We've kind of done postmortems over how the Cataclysm talent revamp worked out overall. We really like the level 10 choice. You can be an elemental shaman at level 10 rather than having to wait till super high level. You get a fun ability like Mortal Strike right away. We think the level 10 specs are a keeper. We also did remove a lot of junk from the talent trees. There were a lot of these passive kind of increases your attack damage slightly, things like that. They weren't very exciting, and we got rid of some of them. We did actually deliver on our goal of engineering some choices. You could finish a tier, and to go down to the next tier, you'd have to spend a certain more number of talent points to get there. When you finished in your primary tree, you could decide which other tree to sub-spec in. We think that worked out pretty well. On the other hand, there are a lot of things that we think we can still improve the talent system. There's a risk of skipping core talents. In the Fury tree, there's a talent called Raging Blow. If you skip it, you're not being adventurous or creative, you're just being a very bad Fury warrior. We removed junk, but we didn't remove enough junk. I think it's a very fair criticism. There's still some talents in there. They're either downright bad or they're just not interesting enough, and we think we can do better. We do have some choices, but we don't have enough choices. Yes, you might have a different final talent point than another combat rogue, but we don't think that's enough. Like Tom was talking about, what talent trees were supposed to do is really give you a way to customize your character, to feel like I'm different from the other people who play my same spec and class. And despite everything we've done, the cookie cutter builds still persist. We have some customization, but it's just not enough customization. Something players mention a lot is they liked the fantasy, at least, of hybridizing, of saying, you know, I'm going to go a little bit down one tree and a little bit down another tree. We can debate whether or not those builds are ever truly effective, but we know players really kind of want them to be, even if we never really delivered on that. Actually, I think this is really important. I want to mention it. I know it's easy for us to be sitting here on stage kind of like saying, passing down laws from the top of the mountain. This is how WoW is going to change. But these are the kind of things we've been hearing from players really since the talent tree's launched, and certainly from Cataclysm. So this isn't just something we decided, hey, let's tinker with talent, that'll be fun. This is something overall we've heard from players for a long time. Guys, you can do better, and we're about to do better. You're welcome. So, talent's gone. Okay. Not completely, but it is so different that we're calling it Talents 2.0. Now, the best way to think about this is you have three types of abilities. You have your class abilities. Say you're a warrior, you get certain abilities for picking warrior. You have your spec abilities. Today, you only really get one spec ability. We're talking about giving you several. And then finally, you have the actual talents, which should be very optional in that you get to choose which one makes the most sense for you. So you still choose your spec at level 2, and you get a spec ability right away. And then you get other spec abilities later as it makes sense. So you might get one level 25, level 40, level 70. Anything from your tree that we thought you really need to function, whether it's a core ability like Divine Storm or a fun proc like Art of War, we just give you those now rather than risk you skipping over them. Like I said, some of these are old talents you need to have, and old core abilities not every spec needs. You'll see this particularly for the pure DPS classes, where a Warlock doesn't need so many different dots and nukes when ultimately Destruction and Affliction are supposed to have different rotations. So what we did is just take some things like Immolate and say, okay, that's now a Destruction-only spell. So just as an example, these are the kind of things a Protection Paladin will get. Point of note that Hammer of the Righteous here goes for both Protection and Retribution. There are going to be some abilities that make sense to go into more than one spec. You can see there are passives and procs in here too. And then you also get to pick talents. There are no longer any talent points or ranks, and there's one talent tree per class. We thought this was really important in order to deliver on the hybridization, or saying, I want to be a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You earn a talent every 15 levels, which sounds scary, but it'll make sense in just a minute. Every time you get to choose a talent, there are 3 choices, and you get to pick one of those. Once you pick one, you can't go back and get the other 2. So you're really going to have to make a hard choice of, do I want shiny object A, B, or C? Our goal is there are no mandatory talents. If you're a healer, you should not see, oh, I have to take this talent because I'm a healer. There may be 3 healing talents, and you pick which one you think would be the most fun, or which one fits your play style, or maybe which one matches this certain fight you're about to do. But we shouldn't ever see anyone saying, oh, you have to get this, or you're just doing it wrong. We also think an important concept here is that you can change talents fairly easily, about as easily as you can change glyphs. So, not the kind of thing you can do in combat, but say you pick the fear talent, and you go into a fight where everything's immune to fear, you can say, hang on a sec, I'm going to respec to the stun talent instead, because I know that's useful in this fight. So I'm just going to walk you through the UI here. Our UI designers have done a great job coming up with a new system. This one should look fairly familiar. We changed it from vertical to horizontal, but you still pick a spec at level 10. And then these are all the abilities you would get. In this case, you're picking the Holy Paladin. Holy Shock's still at level 10, and then a slew of other things you get at higher level. A lot of these will be familiar. A couple of these you're probably saying, ooh, that looks interesting and new. Holy Wrath, Holy Only. And then here's the Paladin talent tree. Every level, every time you get to make a talent choice, you get to pick one of these. These are all very powerful. They should feel very unique and very exciting. I really want to emphasize that. You'll see some familiar names in here, but don't assume that it works exactly the same way it does on live. Sanctified Wrath, for example, we had to make the kind of thing that a Holy Paladin or Protection Paladin would also say, you know what, that's something I could really use, that sounds fun, I want to try it. We think this system, as Tom said at the beginning, is going to give players a lot of cool stuff to geek out over, rather than just saying, hey, what's the cookie cutter spec I need before I can go raiding or PvP. You really want to look at this and analyze and say, I think Veneration sounds fun, but then I'm going to get Sanctified Wrath instead of Divine Purpose, that sort of thing. It's pretty exciting. I think once you see all of the individual talents here, you'll be pretty excited about it too. So here's an example of the Paladin choosing at level 15, choosing Speed of Light, and then the other choices. You can't ever pick 2 things in one row. We knew when we started out here that the only way to really get you guys to understand how this system works is to go through every freaking talent in the game. So we're going to do a panel right after this one, and we're going to walk you through every class and say, here are your talents, enjoy.